has been tweeting that states should be liberated from stay-at-home orders. I do that because liberated is not the correct word to use here, but that's what he's using. And now we're seeing angry protests pop up all across the country that violate basically social distance orders. Don't you think, or do you think, Trump is sending a dangerous message to the American people?
Of course, it's a very dangerous message. Here's what's fascinating about this situation. I agree with President Trump's statements from a week ago or so when he said this is up to the states to determine on a regional basis how they gradually open up their economies. We can't just have one set uniform policy for the entire country because there's areas that can be opened up, albeit gradually and safely, quicker than others. I don't agree with President Trump's statements from yesterday and the day prior, where he's advocating for people to openly flaunt the laws and executive orders of their own governors to, in essence, break the law. We're in this together. If we've seen in New York, the only way that we can truly bend the curve, flatten the curve, is by changing social distancing behaviors. That's not going to change going forward. It will just become more relaxed. But we're not going to be out of the woods for some time, especially until there's a vaccine. And we need the president to lead in this regard. And I don't think Twitter is necessarily the way in which he could be accomplishing that, especially when he's advocating for things like this.
Congressman, this is Megan again. So we have been seeing reports that China obviously has not been transparent with the rest of the world, suppressing information from the beginning when they knew how deadly this disease is. I'm absolutely furious. I think for the benefit of our country, we should have as little to do with the Chinese government as possible. Do you think that the U.S. and the world should hold them responsible for the gravity of this pandemic and the fact that if we had possibly had more of a heads up, maybe less people would have tragically died?
So it's a phenomenal point. And let me say this, when it comes to our larger relationship with China, I led one of the few bills this term which has successfully put sanctions on China. In this instance, it was putting sanctions on Chinese pharmaceutical companies for producing fentanyl, which is killing our kids each and every day. It's clear that China has not been honest about their numbers. It's clear that they could have done far more, and it's becoming increasingly more likely that they're not being honest about the sources of this deadly virus originating and spreading throughout the world. But with that being said, we cannot let our criticisms of China bleed into rampant xenophobia and bias towards Chinese Americans and violence towards Chinese Americans. That is happening at scary, scary levels, and they are Americans and patriots just like all of us and your viewers. The other thing that we can't do right now is just completely retreat away from the world and be isolationists. The World Health Organization made some egregious mistakes, but that's cause for us to take even more of a leadership role, reform the institution. If we isolate, we will forget about the fact, to our own chagrin and demise, that this is a global problem. This virus doesn't see borders. It doesn't see race, creed, socioeconomic status, religion, or nationality. And we have to have a global solution.